Okay, this is the school budgeting process. Steps to the budgeting process: planning, preparation, evaluation. Evaluation is key to make sure that your goals are being met and that everyone who was part of the planning are making sure that the budgeting process is being evaluated and that it is going efficiently. The legal requirements for school budgeting, they come from the state, TEA, and the local district. These three departments set the legal requirements for school budgeting. Stakeholders, the superintendent is the budget officer who has to present the budget to the board each year. The board president must give the public 10 days, usually in some type of media like a newspaper, to notify them about the open hearing before the budget is approved. There must be a committee consisting of external and internal stakeholders to prepare the budget. This is important so that the community feels part of the budget process and they can give their opinions and perspectives on what is important, what may need to have changed from the years before. The proposed budget should be accessible online or in the central office. The budget should be approved by August 31st. The proposed budget should include a comparison from the previous year's budget to the next year's proposed budget so that you can compare and see if anything needed to be tweaked or redistributed in areas that maybe were unforeseen from the year past, that maybe now there are going to be some areas that need a different allotment. Detailed information for the following areas needs to be described in the proposed budget. So how much are you going to be allocating for instruction, instructional support, central office, district operations, debt, and any other areas that must be proposed. The general fund, food service fund, and the debt service fund must all be included in the budget. Even if they are in the general fund or a special revenue fund, they must be in the budget to meet the state requirements. Grant funding should also be considered in the budget, even though it is a small contribution to the funding. Funds come from local, which are school districts' property taxes, the state, which are property taxes, sale taxes, or income taxes, and also federal funds. Funds must be used for things that were proposed. They may not be used for other things. The board may do an amendment to the proposed budget if needed, and the board may create an emergency budget to cover unplanned costs. Foundation School Program, FSP, is the system that Texas uses to finance public schools. It is the majority of the funding that public schools receive. It sets the parameters for how much state and local funds a district will receive and make sure that all schools receive similar funding per student at a similar tax rate and considers state and local funding after student and district cost differences. This is to make sure that all students are learning and have the same access to resources. Two types of funding are operations and facilities. M&O, which is maintenance and operations. Tax rate provides funds for the maintenance and operations costs of the district. GISD, Georgetown Independent School District's M&O, Maintenance and Operations tax rate, is 1.08. This has been the same since 2012, so it hasn't increased or decreased in the past few years. INS, which is Interest and Sinking Funds, provides the funds to repay debt on district facilities. Georgetown Independent School District INS tax rate is 0.318, and this has also been the same since 2012. It has not increased. But due to the bonds recently passed, this may change. Tax rate. The budget has to be approved before the tax rate can be approved. There are things called golden pennies and copper pennies. Golden pennies are the first 6 cents of tax effort a district assesses. They are golden because they give the district the highest amount of funding, and this is supplemental funding. And then there are copper pennies, which are the cents above the first 6 cents of the tax M&O, and give a lower amount of funding, so it doesn't supplement as much. Operations funding, Tier 1, it gives to basic education, special education, career and technical education, bilingual ESL education, compensatory education, gifted and talented, public education grants, transportation, and new instructional facilities. The triangle over here, this image kind of represents like the tiers for intervention, and the way I see it is Tier 1, even for funding, is pretty much the lump sum of the funding that the schools get, and then there will also be other funding as well. Tier 1 funding is the basic allotment. It's the majority of the Tier 1 funds. The basic allotment and the ADA, which is the average daily attendance, is used to determine a district's Tier 1 funding. Operations funding for Tier 2 is a guaranteed funding to help with the funding of Tier 1 and make sure that the district gets a set amount of state and local funds per student in weighted average daily attendance, also known as WADA, for each cent of taxes received. Other FSP aid is known as ASF, Available School Fund, and it's made up of the fuel tax and the permanent school fund. It's determined by the previous year's average daily attendance, staff expenditures, additional aid for staff pay raises. TEA also gathers data each year through PEMS, which is a database. The information that they gather is property value and tax rate, student enrollment projections, attendance, staff information, charter school attendance information. All of this data is submitted through the PEMS, Public Education Information System. Then there's summary of finances. TEA generates this report every year for a district and charter school describing the funding of the FSP. Information found in the report are number of students in ADA, which is average daily attendance, and WADA, which is the weekly average daily attendance. Then you have the number of students making up the special education populations, property values, tax rates, taxes received. All of this will affect how much Tier 1 funding that the district will receive. So TEA keeps this report and then will give it to to the districts when they're getting ready to start their budget process. Below, I found the link for Georgetown Independent School District's 2015-2016 projected report information. State aid distributions. State aid is broken up into several payments throughout the year. So it's not just one lump sum at the beginning of the year. They break it up into several payments and distribute it to the districts. For a charter school, the payments are broken up into 12 monthly payments, which are 12 equal monthly payments. And accessibility, the budgets have to be accessible online for at least 3 years. You can go to your district's website and look up the budgets, and you can go back for as far as they have put on there. If you had any questions. Monitoring, as the funds are being used in the budget, it must be monitored. Now, the superintendent is the main budget officer for the entire district, but each campus leader at each campus or department head is responsible for their campus and responsible for reporting to central office and making sure that the funds are being allocated appropriately and being used, and that it's tied back to goals set in the campus improvement plan, and also that it's meeting the needs of based off of the TAPR report when the site-based committee met together to make goals. These are all of the references used in this PowerPoint. Each image was copied and pasted so it has its reference, and then it also shows the Texas education information that was used to develop this PowerPoint. Thank you.